What's up, everybody, and welcome to GhostCultMag.com's 2025 Album of the Year Countdown. We are going to count down the top 40 albums of 2025 as voted on by our staff. Rock, metal, rock and metal adjacent, sometimes other things. I'm going to be joined by an esteemed crew of our staff, both current and former, and I'm really jazzed for this. We are going to have a swell time, and I'm a little bit more organized than I was at this time last year. So hopefully, even though I don't have my new ADHD meds yet, hopefully I will prevail. So without further ado, let me bring in the team. I'll drop a tip menu soon or whatever. If anybody's watching and they want to tip us some money, I'll spread it between our staff. Any money Ghost Cult ever makes from advertising or otherwise, we put back into the company or share if we can. So here we go. First things first, I want to welcome in the Papa Emeritus to my sister Imperador, Steve Tovey, back in it. How are you, sir?
I'm good, mate. I'm good, mate. I wasn't expecting that introduction. So
yes, I know. I planned it for weeks.
They always refer to as the Grand Moff. So I don't know what that makes me in the Star Wars world. So
I think the Grand Moff, right? The Grand Moff to my Emperor. Also, the senior the editor emeritus. That's what we'll call you for today, because that's what you are. Steve is our former senior editor in charge of the reviews team. He has once again gleefully joined us to organize the countdown for us and collect the votes that the staff made. And it's just a pleasure to have you back. I know, you have taken some time away, but I still feel like you will contribute well, having been part of this process. Of course, the current editor, the managing editor of Ghost Cult, is Tom Osman, which I always say wrong, with his incredible Osman, his alternate universe Star Trek beard. How are you doing, sir?
I'm pretty good, thank you. I was thinking, I don't know if I can carry on the Star Wars references, but am I Steve's Padawan? Is that the thing?
Well, you were his Padawan, and then you became the master. So
nice.
Kind of like Anakin before he went complete bad shit. Insecurity and jealousy will fuck your whole life up. Don't watch the Diddy documentary like I did all weekend. OMG, worse than I ever thought. One of my oldest.
Wild here, Tom. I think that at some point you've got to sabotage the site and just go off on some weird kind of slagging every band we like spree or something.
Yes. Well, I know Will is here for that also. So Will
I might have something to say about Opeth later.
Yeah. Oh well, they don't have a record till maybe next year. Suzanne, how are you doing? The oldest Ghost Cultist, older than me even, I think. Or we came in around the same time.
Not in terms of age, just in terms of tenure, yeah?
No, not oldest. I'm
I'm
the oldest, but I meant the longest serving member of Ghost Cult. Suzanne's here from the magazine days. She's got a bottle of wine. Lovely to see you.
Well, my friend. Only a glass. The bottle was
only
already half empty.
The bottle's gone. Like I said, I was not sober last year at this time. I am sober. I was hoping to have my Ritalin, but I don't have it yet. Oh, well. Riddle in, riddle out. What are you going to do? Will Siffer is here. Will has been just a master of the last few years on a lot of reviews, probably the second most reviews on the site besides Gary Alcott. Will, how are you doing today?
Good. How's it going?
Great. Thank you for joining us after work on a Sunday. I appreciate you, sir. And of course, my hetero life mate, Don DeLamont of Talking the Talk with Don, the Glacial Musical podcast, rocking the Jess and the Ancient Ones shirt. New Jess and the Ancient Ones, hopefully next year. Don, how are you today?
Good. Nanu, everybody.
That is totally two different things. Live long and prosper is not nanu, but I get it.
It's my mashup, man. I'm glad you caught that. I'm a big fan of the mashup shirts. So 2026 is going to be the year of the mashup sayings and hand gestures.
I do miss Robin Williams. So let me do a little bit of the quick minutiae before I go around the room and ask everybody really quick about their favorite records this year. And, not too long, but I made a little thing here. I thought this graphic was fun and interesting. There's a tip menu if people want to tip. That's fine. I appreciate support any way it comes in. Supposed to be launching channel memberships on the huge list of everything else I'm supposed to be doing. Hey, Q is here, and John is here from Waterfront Comics. What is up? And Star Trek. I randomly love Star Trek, Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, Space 1999, everything obscure and different. Looks like we got a nice little crowd watching here on the Tube View. Thanks everybody for being here. I will try to get to some comments as well as we go through the list. And we're still giving away tickets to see God Forbid in Brooklyn, but I'll plug that more tomorrow. There's our QR code, yada, yada. So let's do this. The Brady Bunch view. And hey, look at that. I feel like we're almost all. Are we all here? I think we're all here. Look at that. Look at that handsome crew. I feel like everybody is in, right? Okay. So, yeah. Let's go around the room. I mean, I know you've been kind of away from music, Steve, but did you have, favorite records this year, or like, did you rediscover some fun things while doing this voting process and culling the votes for us?
Culling the votes.
Or whipping the votes. Sorry.
No, it's cool. It's been quite an interesting one, and I think I go through the cycle sometimes where even when you're involved with Ghost Cult, you kind of get used to listening to 40, 50 records a week. And I think I listened to about 40 or 50 records a year, which is good this year. But I got to give more time to each of them, which I think is something that I've missed. I think we can kind of get caught up in the conveyor belt when we're heavily in the reviews, particularly in the annual cycle of things. So it was quite handy. I haven't revisited too much of the stuff that's appeared on the list yet, but I've got a big to-do list to happen over Christmas of albums to check out. But yeah, for me, I won't go into my top favorites because they will appear later in the list, so I'll give some thoughts on those later on. But I just wanted to shout out a couple that won't be appearing in our top 40. Sorry to spoil it for those people that may be hanging on for these to come up later. But I went and saw Sabaton this week, so I want to say I really enjoyed their new record, Legend.
Yes.
First them on Better Noise, and I thought they had. I always loved every Sabaton, but the last two World War records perhaps weren't my favourites, and I think this is a real bright return to kind of bouncy fun of earlier Sabaton on Legend. So I know their stage show this week was just ridiculous. They had a big, massive castle, more fire than Satan's ass, and it was just kind of ridiculous. So, but loving my power metal this year, which is not necessarily great for my cred as a guy in a Death Doom band. So I'll shout out Oniraphagus with Revelations from the Void is my favourite underground record of the year. I don't know if I pronounced that right. I can never tell for the bands with the long Latin type names, but that's a good Doom Death record for my recommendation. And just two others that are probably the two albums I've listened to the most that aren't in the top list. I love the new Baby Metal album. I haven't been massively sold on them over the years. I like the singles, but the new one's ridiculous. I think Rat-a-tat-a-tat with Electric Callboy is my favourite song of the year. Love it. Can't stop playing it. And I want to give a shout out to Employed to Serve with Fallen Star, which I think is the album I have listened to the most this year. Just kind of like a massive step forward for them in terms of launching themselves into the mainstream in Europe. I don't know if they've landed at all in the States, but loads of big riffs, some great guest vocals, Will Ramos and Jesse from Killswitch, Sarita from Svalbard, but guesting on there, and just a really, really big contemporary modern metal record. So there you go. 4 from me. If you think about
right on. And I'm hopeful we're going to get new music next year, Steve. I know you don't want to reveal too much, but I'm hopeful.
Hopeful.
I'm hopeful. Tom, speaking of, you also put out some music this year, but what were some of your favorite records? You certainly interviewed quite a bunch of bands for us and reviewed quite a bit, and of course helped manage the team with the great help of, shout out to Matt Cook, who maybe he'll watch this later.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if it's exactly a coincidence, but quite a lot of the things which are my favorites are by people who I then interviewed, but I feel like it's just my amazing good fortune that I get to talk to a lot of my heroes. So probably my favorite record for the year is actually Admission, the latest record by Cheer Accident, and I got to interview Tim Jones, and I wasn't actually that familiar with Cheer Accident until pretty recently, but they've got a huge back catalogue, and I really love this record. It's like, I'm not a huge prog rock guy, and it's kind of funny because when I interviewed Tim, I like mentioned these different reference points of what I think are sort of in the DNA of Cheer Accident. He said, just one band that you haven't thought of, and I couldn't figure it out, and it was Genesis, and I don't actually really know Genesis at all, but Tim Jones has subsequently been breaking me into Genesis, so now I'm just like, oh, I'm actually a Genesis guy, even some of the Phil Collins stuff as well. So yeah, they've got all kinds of interesting stuff going, great instrumentation, lots of like brass and pianos, and just really inventive and varied. And Todd Rittman's involved from Dead Rider and US Maple. And Skingraft Records is the label that it's out on. I love Skingraft Records. Mark is great. So yeah, that's probably one I've been listening to more than anything else. Possibly my favorite band at the moment. Like I find the next thing I'm about to go on to, I have a thing where like different places that I live tend to end up, or different years sort of get associated with different bands. And this year for me is like Today Is the Day year. I've loved Today Is the Day for years, but I'm just like, they're kind of the gift that keeps on giving for me. I go back to all these different albums and just like keep re-listening and keep hearing more and more and more. And the latest Today Is the Day record, Never Give In, I think is amazing. I absolutely love it. Steve Austin always does something different in terms of the playing and the production as well. He's always got interesting production moves. He never goes for something simple, and I really appreciate that. And I think that's part of why they're such a kind of enduring band for me, because every time I go back to them, they're doing something different and I hear things that I hadn't heard before. Someone else, I don't know how familiar people are going to be with David Clemens, who a while back in the early 90s was in a band called Damn the Machine with a former Megadeth drummer, Chris Poland. And he's gone on to have quite an extensive solo career. I guess for people that aren't familiar with David Clemens, I'd say he's got something of the sort of grand epic scope of Pink Floyd, with sort of this like kind of brooding grunge element of like Mad Season, with sort of pop sensibility of Heart. And his latest record, Everything a War, is a record that I've really enjoyed this year. It's more kind of like anthemic and unapologetically kind of rousing and uplifting in a way that I might get cynical about, but I don't with that record. So I really appreciate it for that. And The Archer by Masters of Reality. If I was just wearing a t-shirt, I could show off my Masters of Reality tattoo. I am a huge Masters of Reality fan, a massive Chris Goss fan, total legend of the desert rock scene, producer of Caius and producer and affiliate of Queens of the Stone Age. Got to interview him for Ghost Cult. Absolutely love the guy. I think his music's amazing. First album in 16 years. Really, really great record. And I don't know if anyone else is going to mention it, but the latest Anna von Hauswolf record, Iconoclasts, totally amazing record. Like, I sometimes, I don't know if I like avoid records that make me feel too much, but this is one of these records that actually almost made me cry when I was listening to it. I was just like, this is actually really powerful. She's got an incredible voice. The instrumentation's gorgeous. The duet with Iggy Pop is tremendous. So yeah, those are my 5 that I'd like to highlight.
Right on. Justice for Phil Collins. Don DeLamont pumped his fists at the mention of Anna von Hauswolf, who I am also a huge fan of. Don, what are some of the records you've been jamming on this year?
First off, I got to say mad props to Tom for the Anna von Hauswolf. That is such an incredible record. I love her. But, I got scolded a little bit because I know we weren't supposed to have like reimagined albums, but for my personal number 1 album was definitely the Bruce Dickinson More Balls to Picasso. Like, fucking absolutely brilliant. Like, I loved that album, and when it came out, I have a very personal connection to it. So to hear it kind of done in this magnificent, almost epic fashion was just like hearing it for the first time. It was incredible. But the new Marissa Nadler album, some incredible melancholy, dark folk. So I don't know, Tom, if you're familiar with her at all, but like, if you like Anna von Hauswolf and Emma Ruth Rundle, like Marissa Nadler is gonna be like right in your ballpark. So yes. And let me see who else. The new Mesa album, The Spin. That I didn't see that coming a mile away. And the only reason I even heard about it was because I interviewed them for Ghost Cult. And I was so blown away by just, I mean, how do you mix metal, doom, and jazz? Like, they just knocked it out of the park. And I think some of my other favorites, just kind of move quickly, was the Jacko Joksik album, Son of Glenn, who is the singer and guitar player for King Crimson. Children of the Sun from Sweden had an incredible album called Leaving Ground. And then I'll just fly through some of these real quick. I had more metal on my list this year than I've had probably in the last 3 years or so. Like, I really loved the Castle Rat, blew my mind this year with the bestiary. Caridi, It Was Still Life was incredible. Frail, Heretics and Lullabies, the new Sabaton, the new Paradise Lost. I don't know. This was just a hot year for metal for some reason, that I felt like so many bands were firing on all cylinders, that when an album was coming out, these bands were like really delivering a great record, you know? So it was a great year. It was a great year.
Right on. Will, let us hear some of your favorites this year. I know you had many, you reviewed many for other things you do. And you've been you're killing it on the Abysmal Hymns podcast also.
So I guess I'm going to bring up some albums that are kind of out of on the left field of here, and so stuff that's not on the list. And according to, so I don't use Spotify or streaming services, but I do use Last.fm to kind of keep track of my listening. And it said that the album I listened to the most was I played. And this is not just like song plays. This is how many times I played the album. Was 222 times. Was Ethel Cain's Willoughby Tucker, I Will Always Love You, which for some reason I got obsessed with this album. It is kind of like, so if you take like Marissa Nadler and that type of thing and add like the drone of the swans to it, but give it the sheen of a white trash Lana Del Rey, then you're headed in that direction. And it was one of these albums that felt heavier than like a metal album, just like emotionally, like Tom was talking about the emotional music. And, you know, I mean, there's some kind of poppy moments. I like pop music. So yeah, that was probably the one I listened to the most. I also got really into, there was kind of a weird, quirky, dark wave-ish type project called Heartworms, and their album Glutton for Punishment I listened to a ton, which is kind of like a steampunk version of Susie and the Banshees, maybe. I know it's kind of, it hasn't come out yet, but I've been listening to it a lot. It's the new Health album. Conflict LLC is weird for them. I mean, you know, I kind of felt like it was a weird year for metal in general, or heavy music. I mean, Health is a metal, but yeah, because it's like super streamlined and they're using like a pop producer on it, but the hooks are there. So, I mean, if you got like catchy songs, I'm all in, as long as you're like at least singing about dying and things like that. So that won me over. Yeah, if you anything, you can be heavy as hell, but if you're like super happy, I'm like out of here. Let's see. Also, there's another kind of new one by a kind of a like hardcore oi band called Homefront, and they combine like hardcore with like weird new wave on this album. It's kind of, they're stepping more into a new wave direction. And their album's called Watch It Die. That was a big one for me so far. And let's see. So I'm at 3. Hotline TNT. They're kind of a indie rockish shoegaze band. They have an album called Raspberry Moon, which, you know, so I'm really big on, and I probably say it in reviews a lot, but I'm always more for like songs over sound, because I think you can like get the plugins, you can buy the equipment, you can get the right producer, you can get the sound, but can you write a fucking song? And these guys wrote some songs and they're great, and I listen to them. So that works. And then there's also another kind of weirdish post-rocky, post-punky band called Imaginary People. And they put out a really cool album called Alibi that is like if Muse wasn't trying to be Queen and were really depressed and listened to Joy Division, then that's where that would find us.
I feel like Muse does listen to Joy Division, but they can't get it out of them. You know
No,
what I'm saying?
they can't.
Everything they make is too upbeat and shit and happy. And no
I reckon
diss
either
to
way,
Muse.
I'd still hate them.
I think,
love it.
you know,
I think they just
Muse-
haven't suffered enough.
Right, yeah, they need to get like some drug habits going. They need to
Yes.
go off whatever medication they're on. It's like
They just had happy
Sure.
childhoods.
the cure. Like as soon as, you know, Friday I'm in Love. That's my classic bathroom break. Like, I don't want to hear Robert Smith happy. I don't want to hear Matt Bellamy happy. I mean, who wants to hear, like, think about it, Jeff Buckley happy? Really? Come on. We know that always ends at the bottom of a river, but it's okay.
I'm not ready, man.
I mean, his dad got into the sex funk, so maybe if Jeff Buckley had been around for longer, he would have had that too.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, yeah.
I always think about, like, what would Jeff Buckley be doing right now? Would he be, like, playing Coachella with, like,
crying
Doja Cat? Would we have to hear that?
No, we wouldn't. Fuck her.
They've gone full Scott Walker.
Suzanne.
Right.
Yeah, Suzanne,
Right.
give me
doing
some
5.
bands. You said you had some underground, some mainstream.
Oh
whatever you
yeah.
were into.
Well, my entire 20 album list is pretty left field. There's some of them that are coming up, and the one that I was most excited about this year has to be Igor, because it is pretty much everything in a blender, and somehow it works. And any person who can use a excavator in a recording by dropping it on a piano and make it sound good, you're fucking awesome. So that was one of my top ones. Listening to a lot of Perturbator as well. New album it's got a few low points, but it's generally fucking good. And I kind of want to throw up a couple of like smaller bands that I put on my list. One of them being Stargazer, which is strange for me because I'm usually not into trash. They're like super young band from Sweden. I saw them play with Hellripper, and I was like, how does this kid have the stage presence as if he's been on stage for 20 years, even though he's like 20 years old? And they put out an album this year, and it's still all trash. It's all songs, but every single song has like a different genre put through it. And there's no breaks on this album. It's really good. Also, kind of have to plug my locals, Noctambulist, who are they started off as a bit more of a old school doomy band with black metal influences, and the new album they released this year, The Drome, it is very shoegazy, reminds me a lot of Alcest, but somehow is both sadder, more melancholic, and more hazy in its layering. It's a very good listen if you like kind of the shoegazy, dark, dreamy stuff. It's very cool. And well, I'm gonna throw out my left field album, the new Grandson album, Inertia. He's not even metal, but this album is really metal or punk. It is just he's got a band, there's guitars, he's more like talk singing with a bit of screaminess to his voice, and it's just all anger. It is all topical and all pissed off, and I was very surprised by that because I was like, wait, what the hell? This is good. Wow. So
right on. Fun fact, I saw Grandson, Youngblood, and MGK horrendously at the same music festival 4 years ago, and I was most impressed with Grandson, and then I kind of lost track of him until you brought him up recently. So I'm gonna dive back in and listen to that again. And
that album
MGK,
it's very good because I thought like I found one song, I was like, well, maybe it's a one-hit wonder, but no, solid throughout.
Right on. We've got some folks joining on the Instagram. Scooter, what up? But yeah, okay. Awesome stuff from everybody. So now I'm going to go through the list, and I'm probably going to whiz through some of them. I'm going to do my own live stream with my top 20 in like a week, but I'll give some thoughts as I get along. We're going to kick it off. Don, please, whoever's typing too loud, please stop typing or mute yourself when you're typing because I can't hear it. It's like a pet peeve of mine. Sorry. I also
Suzanne just gave herself away. Did you see? She was like, oh, that's
yeah. My bad. It's fine. It's usually Don, but it's okay.
I know. That's why I had the hands up. I was like, it's not me.
Sorry, everybody. Yeah, we usually do, by the way, like stay tuned to Ghost Cult socials, especially Instagram, because we usually do like a little staff spotlight as well as guests who make their end of year posts too. So that's all coming. Stay tuned if you guys want to be, just email me or DM me and send me your list. I'm sure I was CC'd on all the ones to Steve, but my inbox is insane. Anyway, kicking off the 40 countdown, 40 to 1. Kind of a mild surprise. It's a great record, but I was like super stoked is that Sumac and More Mother, the film. This is like an experimental record. I've seen Sumac many times, sort of former members of the band ISIS and other things, and Botch and Russian Circles, and More Mother, who's incredible. And I saw More Mother solo and with Godflash at Roadburn 2018 with Suzanne. And it's really, really, I highly recommend it. It's a little out of the box for both of them. It is truly a collaborative record. It's it's on the avant-garde side, but it's doomy plus. I don't really know how else to explain it. Coming in at 39, Lorna Shore, who I feel has been like the little girl with the curl, the it girl. I feel the ever black festering within me. A little surprised that it wasn't higher, but we have kind of a little less death metal focused staff these days than we used to. I think they've taken this progressive deathcore about as far as it can go. And I used to remember Maynard from Tool was like, after Tool got famous, people would come up to him in LA and be like, do the thing. And he's like, what thing? The scream thing you do. And I feel like Will Ramos from Lorna Shore is starting to like become the thing. Like this ungodly, deep guttural vocals are great sounding, but like they're a great band. Bands were doing what they're doing a long time before them. They're just doing it the best right now.
It was like relentless. It's just a bit too much, like I like to have my head smacked in, but it's 66, 67 minutes. It's just
nothing.
You know what I mean?
Almost no
like,
no let up. It's a little much, I gotta be honest. But here's 38, and I know both Will and Suzanne are huge fans of this band, and I'm a big fan of this band, having seen them live. They've changed the lineup a bit. This is Igor with Amen on Metal Blade Records. Again, they call it Baroque Industrial Metal. Will, I know you were a fan of this record quite a bit. Kind of everything all in the sink, the kitchen sink approach, right?
Right, yeah. Although this time it felt to me, because if I compared it to and for me, when we get into bizarre progressive music, the bar goes, to Mr. Bungle and Frank Zappa. Which
didn't he have one of them play with him?
Yeah, definitely descended from. But they used a little less of the glitchy electronics, and it seemed to be a little more straightforward at times, although they brought in the classical elements and that type of thing. But I think it was and this is a stereotypical review thing to say, but they matured on this album, it feels. And the songs feel more, there's less of that kind of spastic funhouse jerking to it. So yeah. And it was fun.
Well done. Suzanne, what do you think about the evolution of Igor? You followed them from pretty much the beginning. They were a Roadburn band, multinational, mainly French, but now they've got a little bit of a different lineup. I love JB from Gloria Belli is now in their band. What are your thoughts on their change? Because I agree with Will about the maturation thing.
So I found Igor, I think in 2013, when somebody sent me Brutal Swing, back when it was still a breakcore solo project. And so for me, hearing you guys go, oh, they have matured now. It's no, that's what happened at Sinusoid for me. Because before that, it was just Gutierrez just being balls to the wall and doing whatever the fuck he felt like. But he has grown into that kind of vibe, and I feel like this record actually brings in more of the stuff he used to do. If you listen to Nostril, or if you listen to oh God, now I've forgotten the name of the Pink album. This is great. Anyhow, the stuff when he was still completely solo and doing a lot with Glitch. But the thing that has changed is, instead of finding samples online or using samples, he now just has people record the weirdest sounds and uses those, and that gives it kind of more of a cohesion. But the weirdness that he's always had in there, and also the sense of humor, it's still there. I have, however, discovered there's a bit of a formula with the names. So if they are very ecclesiastical names, or Deomoni on this album or Limbo, then you get like a really grand song. And if you get nouns or food, then it's going to be somewhat silly. And if it's just a random word, it is going to be some of the weirdest stuff you've ever heard. So there is a little bit of logic there. And I think that sound-wise in the maturing, I think it's mostly that he has a very good group of people that he now works with, like with JB and with like the drummer he has is incredible. It's just insane, and his guitarist as well. But it's also that everything is now recorded in the same setting, so it all has the same sound ambiance. Let's put it that way. Instead of being things he found from other places and put together.
Right on. I'm going to keep it with you, Suzanne, for 37. Gall's Word, another a legend, braiding the stories on Season of Mist, great label. The progression of Gall's Word, again, kind of reminds me very similar to what Tom G. Warrior's done with Triptychon, right? Like, just continue to express and expand the writing. But this is a record you were very high on, too.
Yeah. I love that they themselves also said this is not a black metal album. And it is and it isn't for me. So there is definitely blackened elements, definitely still, some of that aggression and some of the guitar work and stuff like that. There is also a whole lot of esoteric stuff going on and like beautiful things. But in its character for me is where it's still black metal, because it is still very much dealing with like these concepts of sadness, loneliness, the after, the other, and all of that in kind of a dark sense and in a kind of occulty exploratory way. It is a record that you definitely have to listen to, because it's nearly impossible to describe what it sounds like, because it takes from so many places.
Right on. Beautifully said. Coming in at 36 is Imperial Triumphant with Gold Star on Century Media Records. I feel like we were one of the first websites, publications, what have you, that were in on this band. I happen to know the drummer from his other work in the New York City area when I lived there. And, there are blackened death metal jazz bands, but not like them. And I do feel like they've kind of pushed this as far as they can go. And I think it would be interesting to see what they do in the future. But I absolutely love this record, and no shame on this. This is pretty funny. Coming in at 35 is a favorite band of mine. The Melvins 1983 lineup with Thunderball, again, another James Bond reference perhaps, on Ipecac Recordings. And I almost messaged Steve when he gave me the list to say which Melvins record, because they usually put out a few a year. They put out a collab record with an EP with Napalm Death that sold out immediately. And they probably recorded like 3 records while we started this video. Thunderball's awesome. Again, it's a little different animal when they bring in the 83 lineup, but Steve McDonald is basically a permanent member now. And shout out to Reza Mills for his particularly great review on Melvins this year. And then for 34, as I'm trying to bring this through a little faster than last year, I'll kick it to Will on this. Sunguisagabog, however you say it, Snoop Doggy Dogg, with Hideous Aftermath. I think they're not yet where Lorna Shore is. Like, Lorna Shore has done it to death now. And I think everybody is catching up to the band with the horrendous, the horrendous logo of illegible logos and beat down death metal. What do you think, Will, of this record?
So I always called them Sandwich Sugar Bear. I think that this album is my favorite death metal album of the year. And in saying that, it means that they have focused more on, once again, ding ding, songwriting. So I'm not calling them a grind, slam, whatever meme you want to find for death metal that the kids are calling it these days. And it's like just really tight grooves. It's not just hammering you in the head, although they do that, But for me, like, just being heavy alone doesn't work. You have to like, give me something to latch onto, give me some hooks. And it's a extremely, to be as like extreme on the extreme side of death metal, they've made a very like accessible album for like the kids going to like Rockville and Sonic Temple and all of those big metal fests. So I think that they will, I don't know if they'll get to a Lana Shore level, but I mean, I think that this is going to open them up to a bigger audience for sure.
Pippin has joined the chat. One of Suzanne's cat. Keeping it with you for a few more, Will. By comparison, do you think Sanguisugabog is going to make, like, they're going to make people open the door and discover a bunch of death metal bands? Because next on the list at 33 is Glorious Depravity, which you recently reviewed. Death Never Sleeps on one of my favorite labels, Transcending Obscurity. And, a different animal, not as grindy, straight up old school death metal in a modern, cast. You reviewed this excellently, I thought. And, just I wonder if those people will then pick up and check out the classics. Are they going to just check out all the new bands?
I mean, I think that they're going to check out band so Devin is pretty good about name dropping and interviews the bands that he was into, which, are kind of like descendants of Cannibal Corpse. So they're going to probably find that school of death metal. I don't know if they're going to go back and dig into Bolt Thrower. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, who knows? I wouldn't, with the way like kids are finding music these days, I wouldn't have never have guessed that like Acid Bath would be having one of the like hugest comeback tours of the year, when I was like one of 3 people I knew that listened to them for like most of my early teens, So, so I mean, that was kind of a surprise, but
right on. Yeah, right on, man. I feel like I miss Trevor Stenod from Black Dahlia Murder, who did so much work in uplifting like very obscure underground bands. And I don't know if anybody else has really filled that void, but maybe Devin is going to be that guy. I don't know.
I mean, the guys in Jeff Heaven do it too. They definitely talk about bands like Weakling and stuff like that,
Right on. Another Will one. I'm going to kind of zip through the next few before we start spending more time on these. 32 has Hangman's Chair, Sediction, Nuclear Blast Records. Not a band that I particularly vibe with, but I respect what they do. And I know they're kind of like a bigger cult band in Europe than here in the States. But, excellent record nonetheless, even if it's not my jam. I can appreciate it. At 31, we have Callous Dowboys. I Don't Want to See You in Heaven on Monarch Heavy. Honestly, I like their last record much more than this one, but I understand like what they're trying to do also. Sort of the next generation, more diverse spirit box, more, trying to be equally weird as I Wrestled the Bear Once, who I also loved prior to Spirit Box. I just think I like the last record more personally, Celebrity Therapist, but this one is good. Again, probably not a band for most of us on this call. And then 30, this is a really good one, rounding out the 30s, 30 to 40 down to 30. Beast, Colossal on Century Media, phenomenal old school death metal band. Steve and I used to talk all the time about like along a certain timeline, as much as bands try to go technical and progressive and everything, most bands are just meat and potatoes, as we say here in the States, solid at death metal. And this is, they tried to do some different things with their death metal, but it's a straight up death metal record at its core. And I think that's why this record kind of resonated with me. Very, very strong. And then maybe one last one where I zip through these and then we'll slow down a little bit more for the 20s. 29 is Peeling Flesh, kind of the more underrated band in this sort of genre. I basically slam death metal, but other things, other flavors come in there. Peeling Flesh, Radio 2 or PF Radio 2 on the very unsung Unique Leader Records. And they sample in hip hop. They've got like very good grooves, but they're definitely more of a modern band. So it's really fun to me that there's quite a bit of death metal in our list this year, even though we don't have, we have a few. I think next year we'll be a little stronger on the team in terms of like the straight up I only like death metal people. Yeah, Peeling Flesh, I was pleasantly surprised to see pop up in the top 40. And now I'm gonna slow it back down a little bit. 28 is Vows, and this is a record I love personally. I'll fill your house with an army out of line music. Will is a fan of this band, as am I. Tell me what you love about this Vows record, because I have so many things I could say.
So it kind of, reminded me, it took me back to like the 90s, and kind of at first I thought they were like going off into like a new metal direction, but then it gets darker and gloomier, and so that's when I got on board. As soon as everybody gets depressed, you're having a bad time, come on, here we go.
I knew that was coming.
Right on. Trying to multitask. Yeah, I love this record so much, and it's a vibe. It's absolutely a vibe. A total vibe for me, that record. 27 is a record I personally have very high this year, but of course I'm biased. Biohazard from my hometown of New York City, Brooklyn, New York's own. Divided We Fall comeback record, classic lineup. We kind of broke the news that they were reuniting. We're friendly with the band. They've always been very fair and nice to us. They did what they needed to do. Let's make a record that sounds like 95 in 2025. And I loved every second of it.
I think you mispronounced it. You didn't say Bio Motherfucking Hazard. You can't say
Yeah,
Bio.
no. Well, I'm trying to not get us banned off of YouTube, but I hear you.
Keefe, I do have to echo that was an album that came out that reminded me that I was a Biohazard fan, because I hadn't listened to them in years. And then all of a sudden it came out and I was like, oh shit, this is like 95 again. Like exactly what you were just talking about.
Yeah, I'm really thrilled that they, if other bands can do this, it'd be nice. I'm not so keyed into nostalgia. I agree. Nostalgia is a very powerful drug for music fans. And on that note, at 26, Steve, we have Machine Head with Unatoned, which is the sequel to the 2022 album of the year. I know Steve, as am I, huge Machine Head fan. What did you get a chance to hear this record yet, Steve?
I have to say, I let myself be put off by the advanced tracks and some of the noise. And I don't normally go by what other people say on things, but I don't know. I think there's been a weird kind of conflict with Machine Head, probably since Burning Red, where I think Rob wants to write stuff like Burning Red and Catharsis, and I love those two albums. I'm one of the few, I think we talked about Catharsis before, that will go to bat for it. I think it's a strong record, lyrically a little bit here and there, but I think the new one kind of just felt, from the bits I heard, and I haven't heard the full record in one sitting, just a little bit all over the place, and kind of caught between the fans like this sort of Machine Head, but I want to write this sort of Machine Head. So maybe adding my thoughts onto what they've done and coming up with my own interpretation there. But it was one I didn't feel invited in to come and enjoy it, if you know what I mean.
I get that. And I would say, like, I thought the idea of a concept record for them was so great on the last one. And I thought this was just overall a step down. I don't mind the continuation of the story. I appreciate Rob. They just went back to doing an Evening With show again, which is like they had stopped doing before the last record, and obviously the plague and everything else, the plague years. But I think it's an excellent record. I think it's a bit down from the last one, which was our record of the year, and I loved quite a lot. And they again also kind of have a new lineup with a new lead guitar player. Because Vogue is busy with Decapitated, and that may make a difference, even though I think Reese is fantastic as a lead player.
We have to give to Matt Alston, because I've met Matt a few times over the years. He's from about 10-20 miles from me, so great drummer, great guy.
Swell, a hometown mate. I love it. Speaking of extreme metal bands, Allegion, or Allegion, depending on how you talk to them and who tells you what the name is, the Ossuary Lens. I thought this was an interesting record. It wasn't in my top of mind for the best records of the year, but it's absolutely a strong record. And I think that was like the record they needed to make with the return of Ezra Haynes. They're split with their previous vocalist, who's now retired from music, basically, except for some side projects. Really good stuff. And again, more in the technical death metal camp than just extreme brutal slam, right? So they're definitely guitar wizard dudes. I'm gonna kick it to Tom for this next one, although I'm sure most of us could talk about this. Author and Punisher, Nocturnal Birding on Relapse Records. It's very risky after you've done something well for like 10 years to then add a completely new facet of the band, as in this guy was a solo artist and now he is a 2-person band. And he wrote with that person in mind. They wrote together, they collaborated together. He changed how he does vocals. It's not the same sounding band as the band. A lot like Color was their last, or Kruller, whatever it was, their last record. I can't pronounce shit today. What did you think of this record? And I don't know if you're a fan of Tristan's or not. I feel like you might have interviewed him also for your other podcasts.
I think you've got the wrong guy. I don't know this album.
Okay. So much for that. That's the first one of those. It'll probably be more.
I do.
You do.
Know
You're a fan.
it.
We know Tristan from Roadburn and other things. Suze, what do you think about Author and Punisher?
I mean, anyone who takes electronic music and then goes, but I want to build my own shit to make it look and sound cool, so I'm still doing something live instead of pushing keys on the computer. Great. And he has always been like pushing boundaries with that while being incredibly aggressive and abrasive in his music. And that's still very much here in this album. And working with someone new, you can really hear that there is like, I used to have a teacher who would say, if you have the right partner, 1 + 1 is 11. That's kind of what was happening here. And
Right on.
That's fascinating to hear with someone who was already this creative in the way he made music.
I really wish that they were a bigger band, like with a wider fan base, but maybe they're just meant to be an underground band, and I have it wrong.
I think it might be the lack of guitars.
Now he has the guitars. So, but it's not traditional. It's a guy who does sounds with guitars, not like riffs per se.
Yeah,
he's doing layering and textures, and not doing like.
One of the reasons why I love Ghost Gold is because I get to bring in like the not traditionally metal bands, because other places that I've inquired about writing, they're very much. But does it have guitars? If it doesn't have guitars, we do not cover it. Which is like what?
No, yeah, I'm so weird and broad on my things that I love. I think maybe the thing is that Author and Punisher was always like their publicists put it into doom, and fans think of it as a sort of industrial band, but not a typical one. So I just think it's hard for people to catch. If it's hard to classify, it's sometimes not for everybody, but maybe not for everybody's good in this case. 23 is Astronoid. I was kind of surprised at how high this ranked. Star God on 3 Dot Recordings. This is Misha Mansour's label for Periphery, and it's always sort of progressive, whittly metal. But I did one good listen through of this, and I liked it. They're moving away from their early dream thrash, is what they called it. It's like dream pop and thrash, which is a very strange combination. But they're great musicians. I don't think I would listen to this or buy this on vinyl to have it, but like it's a very good record in terms of what it's made to be. And then here's one I know you can do, Tom, and I'm not going to try to pronounce this album title. Haskapel. On Jordan's Blood och grip on Nervous.
I believe it's Jordan's Blood och Graven's grip.
Oh, thanks so much, because I couldn't fucking say that. And death
That's
metal,
what I was going to
heavy
say.
Metal.
Norwegian
What
or
he said.
Swedish?
A bit of both, from what I remember. So he's Oraclet is the main guy, and now I might be getting this wrong, but he lives basically right on the border, and I think it's between Sweden and Norway, but I hope I'm not messing that up. But I was so happy when I saw that this was on the list. I interviewed him for my podcast, whatever comes next, way back at the start of the year, and I reviewed this for Ghost Call. I love this album. I think it's tremendous. And a little bit to Suzanne's point about Gal earlier on, it's black metal, but it's not totally black metal. It's got death metal elements. It's got heavy metal elements as well to it. And also, to Will's point earlier, I think the songwriting on this is tremendous, but I also think that the sound is great. Like, it's just so rich and satisfying. It somehow manages not to it doesn't go into the really lo-fi black metal style. Not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with that, but it's really well produced and rich without sounding too shiny and overproduced. He's also got an amazing voice. And this is where I'm going to say the thing which is my opinion and not representing the opinions of other people that write at Ghost Cult, but it does things for me that Opeth just can't do. I used to be a really big Opeth fan, and to me, when I listen to this, I'm like, oh, this is like My Arms, Your Hearse, or something like that. It's got that grit to it, and whatever, it's other people's thing, but I really didn't like Ghost Reveries, and I didn't like that Water Park record either, or whatever it was, Waterfalls. But this, I think, is great. It convinces me. It's dark, it's brooding, it's powerful. I love it. So I'm very happy it's on the list.
Nice work. Tom, I'm going to keep it with you for a second, because next on the list at 21 is Today Is the Day, Never Given, on the rejuvenated Supernova Records. I just also want to say, like, wouldn't it be something if, like, Steve Austin has produced many major metal bands as well as his own, had this completely remarkable career, and then he makes like an outlaw country record? Wouldn't it be something if that record, when it finally comes out, is like loved universally? It'd be insane. But yeah, what a great record. I mean, I'm just so proud of him, and so proud of what he's fought through and accomplished to make this record. It's brilliant. I
think he's amazing. Like, he's one of my absolute inspirations, and every time I get to talk to him, it's just a total thrill. Like, I'm starstruck, but he's such a down to earth, lovely guy as well, from all the interactions that I've had with him. And yeah, I love almost everything that they've done. I was kind of thinking with this, and I have a sort of a similar feeling with Swans in a different way, that sometimes it can be an investment to listen to a Swans record, and I think you can sort of view it as being like a movie, and you go like, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to digest this whole experience. And I think Today Is the Day, even though the music they make is quite different, can be like that as well. It goes to so many different places, and some of this record's very harsh, but actually some of it's also quite understated as well. Like, you'll get the screams coming in, but you don't necessarily know when to expect them to come in. I just kind of love that sort of sense of creative freedom with Today Is the Day. It's like, he's going to do whatever it is he's going to do. He's going to follow whatever muse he's got. And yeah, like I was saying at the beginning, I just think that I can always come back to Today Is the Day. And I reckon in 5-10 years time, I'm going to come back to this album and I'm going to still discover new things about it. So yeah, I love this one.
Right on. Speaking of Swans, Birthing is in at number 20. We're on to the top 20 on their own Mute Records and Young God Records. And I know, Will, you reviewed this for Ghost Cult. I have a very complicated history with Swans. I was a humongous fan as a teenager. I'm much more interested in what like Thor Harris and Jarboe are doing separately now. But you had quite a good take on this Swans record for 20. For a band that's like 50 years old, 45 years old.
I can definitely relate where like the Jarboe years are my favorite. And I was glad that they came back and started making new music after that. I wasn't necessarily happy that it was for the hippies at Bonnaroo. And so there was a little bit of jamming. And I remember going to the Sear tour, and I was next to people in Birkenstocks and thinking, well, things have changed in this world. And, I am glad that, once again, I don't think Michael Gere was ever on any medication, but I'm certainly glad he did not succumb to it or become any more chipper with age. So it's, back in a darker direction. And he's not like howling like a preacher like he was at some point in time on like Sear. So yes, I mean, I'm pretty easy to please with these guys. I mean, you give me a good drone, you make it dark, get depressed, smoke some weed, I'm good.
Fair enough. Fair game.
I'm not sure if Michael Girard ever smoked a joint in his life, but
yeah, probably
he needs
never.
to. He probably needs. I can see with Angels of Light that he might have. You
I
know,
would like to see.
I
Michael
mean, he
give
did cover some Steve Winwood. Somebody was smoking a joint in that studio at that time.
not him. But
Yeah.
Also,
I'd like-
given the Preston good joint, why haven't you been at Roburn yet, or have you?
I need to. Because it's I was gonna go one of the Chelsea Wolf years, but
I think she'll be back. She's kind of a fan favorite. So.
yeah. So I need to show up.
One of our newest ghost cultists is here in the comments on YouTube. Thanks, Robbie, for being here. He covered Agnostic Front last night, which I love that Agnostic Front record.
Oh, nice.
Going over to Dawn, keeping it with you, Dawn. Marissa Nadler, New Radiations on Sacred Bones record, one of my favorite records of the year, is one of yours. I know Dawn is probably a little biased because he knows Marissa and she worked on his new album with him. But I'm on with you, Dawn, about why this record rules. Let's chop it up about this a bit.
Oh yeah, I mean, so if anyone on the panel knows Marissa Nadler as far as her music, it was just her. I mean, every album has just been brilliant, one after the other. But for some reason, this one kind of went full circle back to around, I don't know, like a little bit before July, maybe even like Little Hells or something like that, where it was just very stripped down, very organic, just guitar voice with very little instrumentation going to it. So it was definitely a rootsy album for her. And it was exciting because I feel like sometimes if a band goes too far back or an artist does, it sounds like they're running out of ideas. But I feel like what she did was that she kept progressing to a point where she kind of took it back so that she wouldn't forget where she had actually started coming from in the first place. And so that's actually a really cool thing. She's got a very extensive US tour coming up. She just finished in Europe, I think 2 days ago, maybe, or something like that. So she was over there for probably about a month and a half or so. So she did some great shows out there. Looking forward to the tour. She always puts on a great show, but the album is definitely like a perfect, like 2 a.m. type of album. You know, if I'm up late and I'm writing, it's amazing. I'll be writing an article about, I don't know, like doing something about Carcass, and then I'm listening to Marissa Nadler as I'm writing because it's just such a change of focus. But absolutely incredible.
It always comes back to Carcass and Foreigner.
Carcass and Foreigner.
Yeah. Coming in at 19 is Wake, The Return of Magic on Relapse Records. This was a record, another one of the early. I always feel like the first 3 months are a blur, and those records tend to get forgotten when it comes to stuff like this exercise of this vote and countdown. But Tom got to interview them for us, which I was really thrilled about. Tom, give me some thoughts on that record, because I know you had to spend some time with it for that album interview.
So I've got this thing that I lapse back into quite a long, where I'm a bit of a broken record, where I sort of go that my favorite apocalyptic record is Through Silver and Blood by Neurosis. And I particularly love Eon, this track near the end of the album. And this record by Wake, particularly the mouthful of a track, Distant Constellation, and the psychedelic Incarceration, taps into that vibe. For me, the first time I heard this record, just instantly in the first track, I thought, oh, I'm going to love this. And they've got this really powerful, dark, ominous tone. They've got these amazing different guitar parts that are swirling through the record. That particular track that I mentioned has got this spoken word monologue by one of the members of Black Oak, Arkansas. And there's a whole story behind how that came about. And yeah, it's just like a really enveloping, dark, psychedelic. It's just totally my thing. And it's got screaming in it, but it's got great guitars. And I don't, it's not even really a but it's, it's really kind of mind warping. I think like one of the first things I noticed, and I said to them as well, was whenever I see magic with a K, I know there's going to be something cool and mysterious and esoteric going on. So yeah, they seem like really, really nice people and really kind of interesting existence that they have. And another one of these cases where they hadn't released a record for ages, all kinds of stuff going on in their lives in between, and they just come back out of the blue seemingly with a really amazing record. So yeah, I'm also really pleased that this one got some love, because like Keefe says, that it came out relatively long ago in terms of the year, so it's cool that people remember it.
Right on. And I think they are one of the, Steve and I used to talk about like who are the quintessential Ghost Cult typical type of bands, even just the classically Ghost Cult when we were more avant-garde focused, and Wake is one of those bands. And they came from a scene that also has that had Kylisa and early Baroness when they were more sludgy, and a few, U.S. Christmas is a band I'm a huge fan of that I would love to see come back. And Wake was gone for a long time. So I think this is really cool. I think there's a documentary about them on YouTube if people want to dive in deeper. 17 on the list is a band, again, similar to Wake and similar to Kylisa and these other bands I thought would never come back as an active band more than just occasionally for festivals, is Dead Guy. Near-Death Travel Services on Relapse Records, kind of like the underground metalcore that's not poppy, swoopy-haired, ripping off Iron Maiden, but also like really good hardcore and also noise rock. So really a great band. Phenomenal comeback for them by playing their classic records at festivals and things like that and touring a little. And I know Don knows the band a little bit also here, but because we were talking about that offline. But
I just wanted to say that Dead Guy reunion was a reunion that nobody knew they needed. Like, it was just so incredible. It's like one day I just woke up and like they were signed again. And I like messaged, I was like, what the hell just happened? He's like, oh man, we're hitting the road. I was just like, that's incredible. Great fucking record though. Great album.
Right on. I appreciate that. Moving on to number 16. And I'm going to kick it to you, Suzanne, for this. Der Weg einer Freiheit Innern on another Season of Mist record. Unshockingly makes the list. This is a really, like, for them, I thought this was a mark of change for them, right? Because their other records this is a slightly different animal, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit different than the stuff they've done before, but it's still really, really good. And it's almost a little bit more mellow, a little bit less super aggressive like it used to be. And they've always had these elements, but it's a great record. There were like 2 or 3 moments where I was like, oh, that's a bit of a sudden break, and then we suddenly go somewhere else. But other than that, I just listened to it the whole way through, and I am not surprised that it's yet another Seasons band, because they do tend to love these sorts of black metal bands, and they're an incredible live band as well. I'm very sad that I had a conflict when they were playing locally, because otherwise I definitely would have covered them. But I also had some other bands that I'm a little bit closer to personally play the same day. It was a day with 3 shows in a small town. But great record. I feel like they've started to mix in a little bit of post-black elements, even though it's still got the teeth. Because one of the things that happens very often when black metal bands go post-black is you start losing that danger sense. And for me, if black metal does not have that sense of foreboding anymore, or that sense of the things that go bump in the night, the things that make the hairs in the back of your neck stand up when you walk in the forest alone at night, if that's gone, that's kind of when they lose me. And they've managed to mix it in such a degree that there is still enough of that threat in there.
All right. Very well said. I'm a little surprised that number 15 on our list is Whitechapel, Hymn and Dissonance, out on Metal Blade. Very popular deathcore band. Started out as death metal. Their last record, The Valley, was like we're going to try new things and expand and be atmospheric and weird and do different things. And I think their fan base was very divided by that record. And this is a good record. I'm just surprised we had enough people that voted it this highly, because I wouldn't have. But I think it's cool that they are still hey, Pippin is here. I feel like it's cool that they're still top of mind. Like, people are not like rejecting them because they never went back to pure death metal. They still have moments. I think they're a very fun, good live band. I just don't sit around and listen to this record either. I don't listen to their records like all the time. I have a couple of them. No surprise to me at number 14 is Spirit Box. And Will, I know we both share a fandom of this band. You know, I don't know if they're, you know, they had a very public fight with a certain artist we don't cover who's a shithead and sucks. I think it's a great album, Tsunami Sea, out on Pale Chord Records. You know, people keep talking about them being industry plants. So it's like if you don't read the internet and you just listen to music like Will and me, you will enjoy this band. If you want to read all the drama and stuff people say about them, you know, it might be diminished for you.
I mean, I don't see how they could be industry plants when, you know, Courtney was in I Wrestled a Bear once for a minute. So, you know, but it's, you know, I love pop music, and they kind of marry pop music with the metalcore stuff that I don't normally like, you know. And it's just like great songs. I think this album I listened to 147 times, and you don't do that without tricky songs. So, I mean, you can take away some good stuff from pop music, and I think that, you know, Courtney definitely is a personality and has charisma, although she's not like twerking like Megan Thee Stallion or whatever. You know, she's putting on a show, and I want to go. They're playing, I think, here in Florida with Evanescence. So I'm gonna try to go out and see. And it's hard to get me out to shows, but I'm gonna go see them and leave after they play. But yeah,
I love it.
You know, there's some heavy songs like "Soft Spine" is really it hits all the notes that if you were, you know, into sniffing glue and listening to, you know, stuff that's, you know, just your typical metalcore, it still gives you that kind of punch in the face. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Soft Spine is the level of petty that 50 Cent is with the Diddy documentary, and I'm here for all of it. So fucking petty. And yeah, we hate that guy. Anyway, hey, Don, I'm going to kick it back to you. Don is our resident. Hey, Don. Don is our resident guy here for occult rock and D&D metal, for lack of a better vernacular. And so Castle Rat, the Bestiary, I'm not surprised. This is a band that's been kind of bubbling under for a while. They're from New York. They're incredible live. And I think they finally made the record that captures the live vibes. But Don and I are both very high on this band and this record. I mean, like a woman riding a sword, a woman riding a unicorn.
Oh, watch that, dude.
Careful. A woman riding a unicorn with a sword on the front cover with a wizard behind her.
Don't get cancelled. Don't get cancelled, please.
Yeah. I know. I'm always at risk of being canceled. Don, tell me about the Bestiary and Castle Rat.
Oh my God, that is an album that I did not see coming. I remember getting briefly introduced to Castle Rat a few years ago and just being like, like I kind of thought it was almost kind of like a poor man's Savage Master kind of thing. But man, something about this album, they just hit and they hit hard. Like I could not stop listening to it. And I'm a huge fan of that kind of cheesy epic metal. You know, I grew up listening to that. I kind of missed the boat on extreme metal with the few exceptions like Morbid Angel or Carcass. So I kind of feel dusted when we start talking about the heavier bands, but it makes me want to go back and listen to them. But with Castle Rat, it sounded like a piece of my childhood, actually. And so it was really a time warp back to a time where, you know, that metal just was like epic and storytelling and almost kind of take you away, you know, from everything. So it's just a fantastic album. The vocals are absolutely phenomenal. The guitar playing, the twin harmonies. I mean, you know, if you like metal, I mean, you should like this album. That's pretty easy.
Yeah, I feel like Dio would have liked Castle Rat as a band. Like he would be a fan of that.
Oh, they would have been like a support act without a doubt.
They owe him so much. And
and
you know what? I think they're original enough. I think that's the problem with some of those bands that are trying to do what they're doing is they're not original enough. And I think that they are. I'm gonna keep it with me I'm gonna keep it 100 and keep it with me for number 12. 9 Inch Nails, the Tron Eras soundtrack. We haven't had a lot of soundtracks historically in the countdown. It is the first soundtrack that Trent and Atticus have made that they felt good about putting the 9 Inch Nails name on, and it works. That's the whole thing. It's a 9 Inch Nails album set to this movie. I love the movie. I love Tron, the franchise. I'm the one that loved it. even though Jared Leto is a weirdo and not cool. But yeah, what a great soundtrack. I love this thing. I listened to this thing a bajillion times this year. One of my most listened to records, one of my most listened to things, according to Spotify and otherwise. And it makes the movie better because of the soundtrack under it. Like if anyone did see the movie or will see the movie, I think it's on Disney Plus now. So yeah, highly recommend this. And I'm here for more of it. And I said, like, 9 Inch Nails, for what it's worth, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame doesn't matter that much to me except to complain about it on my shows. But I feel like it's possible that Trent and Atticus may get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as composers separate from 9 Inch Nails, which I think would be really sweet. Number 11 on the list, I'm going to give it back to Steve because he's been a longtime fan. We joke about this band on our podcast, Dawn. Paradise Lost at number 11 with Ascension. I had a really great interview with old Nick and talking about this record and what his goals were for the record. You just saw them live, and so what a killer record this is. And I know I joke with them that they're like 38 years as a band with like 37 records. It's not that many, but like that's the joke. Steve, Paradise Lost, nice to see them here on the list after years and years, right?
Yeah. And I have a, listening wise as a fan, I guess you'd call it a complicated past and history of Paradise Lost. And I think overall they're one of the bands, like the bands I've been in, including current band, they're one of the underlying influences that we'll always have, like Gothic, Shades of God, Icon in particular, really, really kind of core albums for me. Like as a teenager, going from your Metallicas and your Maidens into your underground music, a brilliant gateway band. Shades of God was a huge record for me in terms of that, discovering death metal, discovering horrible music. But I haven't always been a fan of everything that came in between. I think Tragic Eye was a great record, Played Within as well. And what I'm really pleased around with Ascension is there's kind of like a happy medium of I guess some of the cleaner stuff they've done, but with the return to some really great, horrible, doomy riffs and snarling vocals. I think Nick Holmes, this is probably his best album, full stop, both in terms of his cleans and also his heavy vocals are probably maybe Bloodbath, Grand Morby Funeral, maybe slightly edges, but it's for me his best growling performance as well. You put all that, coming back to Will's comment earlier and the theme of the night, I suppose, they've kind of rediscovered some songwriting techniques and approaches I think that they may have come away from, whether that's been because with Nick Holmes and Gregor McIntosh revisiting Host on a very controversial album, but that's potentially brought back some of those hooks and kind of Sisters of Mercy and Gothic kind of kind of influences. But I think that's all married together and comes together in Ascension. I think particularly the first 6-7 songs of the record, so fantastic. And it's really good to see them kind of, like I say, this deep into their career, still having something kind of something to say and something new they can add to their sound, where you think they've kind of probably covered everything that was going to come before. And the final bit on it, there's some absolutely iconic Gregor McIntosh Wah Wah leads that hark back to kind of Icon era, and it's just kind of like the cherry and the icing on top for me with that. Have you muted yourself, Keith? Have you done the unsinnable sin?
I'm muted and talking. Hello. I feel like Paradise Lost will never overcome the Small Town Boy Bronski Beat cover that I love, by the way, but like they won't ever recover from it. Some of their like diehard old school fans hate that shit. Into the top 10, and no surprise, one of the most controversial bands of the year of metal right now, of heavy music right now, is Sleep Token and their record Even in Arcadia. I love this record. Will's a fan. What do you think the overall draw? Why is Sleep Token like so whipping up a frenzy in their own fandom and such a hatred from other metalers?
I like pop music, so I guess I'm immune to some of the insecurities, I guess, that it brings up, because I think that, it's the marketing, really. That's the problem. Like, if they had just been like, okay, we're a Spirit Halloween pop band, everybody would have been all right. But the moment they got called metal, then I think that that's when it you know, I don't, I don't like the term gatekeeping, because I think that, it's all right to say that water is wet, or, that it's cold outside when it's cold outside. So, and sound can certainly be defined, it's frequencies. We can say what kind of frequency that is, and that's cool. But I think what matters the most about this album is that it's catchy as hell. Sure, a lot of it is like the benefit of a producer, and that's good. Wrestling is fake, and I am totally entertained by it. So, it's all right. It's one of those like albums where it's like if Green Jelly was taken seriously, and just given like some really slick songwriting and production, and I mean, that's all I need. You got, they're kind of depressing, even though it's like depressing for like 12-year-old me would have been into it. But yeah, I mean, it's super cool in that direction. I'm not going to say that Sleep Token is the same level of artist as Typo Negative, or they're on the same tier as Iron Maiden. But in 2025, they're making better pop music than Sabrina Carpenter. So I can dig that.
I think they could be an incredible gateway band, because nobody starts with the really hard, intense stuff, or maybe some people do, but most people don't. You usually listen to something like Sleep Token, or Typo was kind of a gateway band as well, since you mentioned them, but like bands that are a little bit closer to pop but have some heavier elements. And as a community and as a scene, we need to stop ragging on the gateway bands, because we need them, because otherwise we're going to die out.
And I think part I would have put across for this, and there is a lot of pop on the record. I agree with you, Will. I think if they were marketed as a pop band with metal bits rather than a metal band or whichever, then maybe it lands differently. But that's not to take away some of the dynamics of the songwriting, like the tracks 1, 2, and the last two songs. So the first two and the last two, the bookends. There's some really, really deep, I think, songwriting in there. These are the tracks that are 6-7 minutes long, but they take their time over. They build the dynamics. They kind of, yes, we know the formula is going to happen at some point. The big crushing riff's going to come in, and those sorts of bits are happening. But I think it's really well kind of crafted and put together. I probably preferred more songs on previous albums than on this one. But I think when they hit it, those 4 songs in particular, I think it's the best tracks that I've heard them do. I think there's something there in that progression for them, that's kind of really interested me. And I also think, like with some of the other bands you talk about, gateway bands, who's and so on, they get people talking one way or another, whether people hate them, whether they love them, whether they've got an opinion on who they are and what they're doing. They're the first album we've come to out of 30 albums so far where I think 3 or 4 of us all wanted to say something about it and kind of chip in. So kind of, more credit to it.
I was just going to say, could I chip in real quick on what Steve said? Is that I wish somebody had described that to me the way you described it, because when I went back, I didn't listen to this album until about a week ago, because all I've ever seen is just the visual, and then just gatekeeping metalheads who are just like, oh, fuck this. Yeah, but it reminds me so much of almost like the more mellow side of like early Lacuna Coil type stuff, where it had some kind of ethereal, melodic, almost kind of ambient sound to it. And then it kind of comes in. I enjoyed this album more than I thought I was going to do. And so it's made me want to remember that when I'm talking about music to other people who don't necessarily listen to the type of music I listen to not be so closed in about it, to be a little broad, especially with, like Suzanne said, like we don't want to start shutting people out of this genre of music or anything, but we can totally explain it or express it in a way that we might not talk about it with each other, to kind of open other people, to go in and listen to it. So great job, both of you guys, actually, for reminding me that.
Almost unbeknownst to me, Author and Punisher had popped into the chat for a second right after we talked about them, but I didn't miss it. Damn it. I'm going to talk about the next record a little bit myself, which is Acacia Strain, You Are Safe from God here on Rise Records. Long-running, consistent band. Kind of started out as deathcore, hardcore, death metal now. And even now doing kind of like even a weird avant-garde death doom, kind of similar to what Fit for an Autopsy also kind of went into this vein in a really great way. This is the highest the Acacia Strain has ever placed on our end-of-year list, considering we have like a contingent of Bostonians from when I lived there, and I also was like an early fan of the band. I mean, it might be their best record, and they've put out like, I don't know if you count up all the releases, EPs, singles, and stuff the last 5 or 6, 7 years. It's like their like 9th release in 3 or 4 years, and it is their best record, maybe ever, or one of them. It's pretty. I was very partial to Wormwood also, but it's pretty incredible. I'm really proud of them for what they accomplished, and it's just such a strong record. Like, I feel like even the arms folded, gatekeepery death metal people would love this record now. There are doom metal fans that will be like, there's some death doom in here that I can get with. So I'm really thrilled that this made it up as high as 9, and highly recommend everybody check this out. And then for number 7, kind of no surprise, maybe not quite the highest they've ever been on our list, but yet another album, yet another year, yet another top 10 record for Testament, Parabellum, easily to me the best thrash record of the year on Nuclear Blast Records, longtime label for them, Nuclear Blast. Basically since the band reunited and came back to being a recording entity in 2007. I think this is their 5th record in 15 years. They tour a lot. They have a new drummer who I know for a long time, going back to New England, Chris Dovas, who used to be in Seven Spires, the Game of Thrones progressive metal band, and they let their like death metal and black metal influences fly alongside of their thrash. And I absolutely love this record. I'm really, just got to interview Chuck Billy for it, and just a banger from top to bottom. And there's a mid-album song that is like absolutely nothing they have ever done. I don't even think any thrash metal band has ever, like, it's not even a fade to black type of thing. It's beyond that in terms of like what they accomplished as songwriters. So really cool to see them continue to kind of show up and dot our lists year after year. Coming up at number 7, and another quintessential ghost cult band that I always associate with the late and great Paul Quinn, is Primitive Man. Observance out on Relapse Records. Tom, I know, is a fan of this. I'm going to kick it to you, Tom, to talk about Primitive Man for a second. I always joke that they're the heaviest band on earth, and you can't really, it's not like an argument you can make that they are or aren't, but I always say they are, and they certainly backed it up on this record. But they're doing, I think they themselves were cognizant of kind of mixing it up a little more dynamically for the first time ever.
Yeah, definitely. I think they back it up, but they also add new dimensions to it. And like this topic of what the heaviest music is, for me, I tend to go back to Cop by Swans. That's generally like my benchmark for the most brutally crushing heavy music. And in terms of music that's being made at the moment, then yeah, I tend to defer to Primitive Man. Like, I was sort of thinking about it before we had this call, and I was thinking, in terms of sort of psychotic metal intensity, Full of Hell are also up there, but in a very different way. But when it comes to just the sort of crushing, punishing, brutalizing, slow, deathly sound, Primitive Man are pretty hard to beat. But one of the things that I think is really cool in this record is there's actually kind of beauty in there, which is a surprising thing to say about Primitive Man. I even as well, when I was, I got to interview Ethan McCarthy, and we bonded on our shared love of Today Is the Day and noise in metal. But I was taking notes on various aspects of the album, and I wrote a note that on the second track, Devotion, I wrote, the drums come in so exquisitely at around the minute mark, it's almost sexy. And I reread that today, and I thought it was funny that I remarked that something about Primitive Man was sexy, because they're not generally really a band that you would call sexy. But yeah, this record's great. Like, I would probably say that for people that maybe if they're not familiar with the band, or if they found them a bit impenetrable before, this is like a good entry point, but not in the sense that they've sort of mellowed out. They've just added different dimensions. It's atmospheric. They've got some really great videos as well that are worth checking out. So you get the visual side as well as the music. But yeah, again, I'm another one of these ones where I'm really pleased that it's this high up the list. I'd be curious to know who it was, apart from me, that voted for this. But
I can
it's great.
guess.
Yay!
Yeah, super cool. Thank you for
Yeah,
that, Tom.
I had it on my list as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure like I can think of a few other people that might have had it. I will just to recap because the private chat has been getting at me. Sleep Token 10, the Acacia Strain 9, Testament 8, Primitive Man 7. I apologize for those following at home, and I am thankful for everybody watching. We've got a very nice, steady stream of people watching this, and I'm thankful. Mojo's Army is here. We hung out last night in person at a show, and yep, we did have Author and Punisher and Wolverine Kills also. Friends.
It's all right. It's 7A and 7B. We don't have to be conformist about this.
Yeah, you know, like I'm Velvet Hammer, hands off, very soft. Try to be laissez-faire. Number 6 on the list. We're down to the top 6. I promise you this is going to go as quickly as we can. Don, let's talk about a band we share a deep love of. We already talked a lot about Mesa. They are going to come back to the States. Metal Blade is one of those labels that will give you some tour support, even if you're international. Man, what a beautifully layered, incredible album. And, you know, I'm so thrilled. This is, again, a band that, like, we were founded on, like, certain unwritten principles of supporting the underground. And this is truly a band that came originally from nowhere and was so good regionally that Metal Blade found out about them. You know, like whoever's doing, you know, whoever's spying for them out in Europe was like, this is a band you need to, like, I know we don't have a lot of bands that sound like this, but we need to have this band.
I mean, Kiwi, you know how I am as far as what I love. You know, I'm a big occult rock, big psych rock fan, and, you know, not so much. And it's when they start to like marry these styles that it can either be really interesting or it can totally just go off the rails and not be very good. Like the minute I heard The Dress off of this album, I was like, I just heard probably one of my top 5 albums of the year. And this was a while ago. And everything about it, like if you like Doom, if you like psych rock, if you like the occult rock sounds of like Jess and the Ancient Ones, and I don't know, it's almost like I get speechless just thinking about it because it's such a beautiful album. And when you talk about having a heavy kind of doomy type song that's got a psychedelic vibe to it and then a jazz sax solo, I mean, sign me up, man. I'm all about this album, and I'm actually very surprised it got it made it this high in the list. I'm like, I'd like to know who all like this one as well.
Right on. This was like in my top 1, 2, or 3 the whole first half of the year before other things came out.
Yeah, it's in my personal top 5, like for my site.
I love this thing. Yeah, for sure. I love this record. I'm really glad. And I'm glad I saw them. And it will be, I think they'll be back in the States next year, Don. I'll let you know when. I'm going to keep it with me for number 5. We're into the top 5, everybody. This has gone very well as far as I'm concerned, except for my faux pas. Wardruna, what can you say? Another year. Berna, aka the She Bear, by Norse Recordings, also Sony distributed. Wardruna is one of my favorite bands. We have been very lucky to cover them from the very beginning of Ghost Cult. I feel like one of our first interviews is still like pinned to their homepage or something somewhere down the screen. You know, basically world music for metalheads that like Viking stuff. But it's much more than that. And I think this is, you know, now that they have kind of like rejuvenated their band a little bit and expanded the repertoire of the crew, Lindy Fahella and Einar Selvik sing beautifully together, call and response, whole group vocals live that really brought this album and these tracks to life. You know, I can't say enough good things about it. I'm a humongous fan of the genre, and there are now many bands that have, like, Wardruna was not the first, but they have been the most prominent and successful band of the genre, and many bands have now followed their wake, and you will see many of them come out with new albums in the new year. And just a phenomenal record. And if you need a change of pace from riffs, but you need something a little more deep and spiritual, I recommend Wardruna to everybody. Now we're getting into the top 4, and I do want to say that we talked about Machine Head earlier being a previous winner of the Ghost Cult Album of the Year. We had 4 or 5 releases this year from previous Ghost Cult Album of the Year winners. So some of these shouldn't be a surprise, but some of them may still be to you. Maybe not always your jam and cup of tea. Number 4, Deftones, Private Music on Reprise Records and Warner. One of my favorite records of the year. I'm a humongous Deftones fan. And I think one of the most surprising things is that Gino Moreno actually wrote the vast majority of all the riffs on this record because Steven was dealing with his health issues. I know Will is a Deftones person, at least for this record. What'd you think of Private Music, and how does it stack up to their greatest?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Deftones fan, definitely of the first 4 albums, and then after Chi, the post Chi stuff, has been. I don't think they have any bad albums. They just have some that have hooked me in a little less or more. I think this is Chino's first album sober, and so I think that's a win because this is definitely not like a post-sobriety Megadeth album. It still has some. It's not dark, but it has some hook to it, and it gets a little more into some aggressive styles that they've kind of they almost became like a trip hop band. They were kind of veering into like a Portishead territory for a while, and I don't know. I think they're kind of back in, because they're so influential on a lot of bands that have been like last year's number 1, Knock Loose. Those guys and all of that kind of more melodic metalcore scene has been influenced by Deftones. Bands like Bad Omens, Sleep Token. All those guys are certainly into Deftones because the way that they blend the atmosphere with the kind of groovy metal. So yeah, I think it's, great songwriting. They're obviously old pros, so they're not going to put out bad stuff.
Right on. I'm totally backing you on the post-Chi stuff, which I do still love, and rest in power to Chi Cheng. They definitely changed the band after he passed. I don't think we're ever going to get that Eros album, maybe while the band is functioning. Number 3, I'll talk a little bit about this one myself. Death Heaven, Lonely People with Power, out on Roadrunner, their first album for Roadrunner. They are a Bay Area band. I have been into this band for a very long time. I remember flying from the West Coast on a trip back to Boston. Home for me at the time was Boston, and I flew in to see them at their first ever headline show at the Sonia, which has now been open a long time in Boston. And, this is a record, they were teasing it with billboards around my town. And, I know that they were very also similar to Sleep Token. Are they really black metal adjacent? For a long time, they were derided by extreme metal fans. You're not really metal and this and this and that. But realistically, putting together kind of like the Slow Dive, My Bloody Valentine, Noise Drone with black metal, legit black metal passages. I think this is, they don't have a bad record. They're not trying to do Sunbather 2. They never have. I really love this band. I know Suzanne and I had a hilarious chat about them because, I think, Suzanne, you said you loved about 3 songs and then the rest of it enraged you. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, pretty much. I have never had this visceral of a love-hate reaction to any album, I think, because, and it pisses me off because for the longest time, I was one of those people who was like, nope, don't like Death Heaven. It's not black metal enough, and it feels a little bit like wank to me. Other people can like it. They can love it. It's technically well done. It's just not for me, and that's fine. Enjoy it. And then a friend of mine posted the first single and was like, and I know he's into some pretty heavy black metal, and he was like, this is the best thing they've done since their demo. And it was like, well, now I'm going to have to listen to it. And then it was it was Magnolia, and it was like genuinely a pretty good black metal song. And I remember commenting like, I am so angry that you made me listen to Death Heaven, and I'm even more angry that it's good. Because for me, it's like, you could have done this the entire time. And I was like, I have to give this album a try. So I listened to it. And the 3 heavy songs are incredible. And one of the interludes is terrifying. If you stick those 4 together, you have a great EP that I would put on.
Yeah.
But when
And they have
get
great
back-
guest appearances. I didn't even mention that also.
but when they get back into the stuff, it was like, no, I want to throw my PC out the window.
Right on, right on. Tom made a great comment in private, but I'll keep it to myself for the moment. Down to the last 2. I also, let me just say also, Death Heaven review for Ghost Cult was written by Charlie Hill. We don't really shout him out enough here. You know, he did a really, he had a very strong year with reviews, and his Death Heaven review was quite good. I don't think it was his favorite record, but again, it's up at number 3. So clearly enough people voted on it highly. I thought highly of it enough to vote it, you know, relatively high in my list. Number 2, I had a feeling this might be the number 1 record of the year because the last time they put a record out, it was the number 1 record of the year for Ghost Cult. Black Braid with Black Braid 3. Vehemently DIY. They will not sign to a label until they feel, if ever, until they feel right. They debuted this album live at Fire in the Mountains Fest at the Grand Tetons on a Native American reservation. I've gotten to interview Sagasa Way, you know, incredible record. I do agree, again, on the side conversations that this is the least sort of nativist record that they have. It's more traditionally black metal, probably in line with the Wolves in the Throne Room or some of the more atmospheric stuff Abigail Williams has done. But at the same time, I just feel like it's such an album of depth and songwriting and you know, character that I loved it immediately, even though it was missing some of those elements. And I think that John Sagasa Way is worried about becoming like the Native American Wodruna. I think that's probably in his, you know, I don't want to say it's in his head because I don't know him, but like, I think that's probably a concern of repeating himself, repeating his beats. 2 records, pretty similar, both brilliant. 3rd record, you know, let's focus on being more truly black metal. And, you know, I do know that some people were, some original Black Braid fans were like, what is going on? And where is my band that I loved? But I think they brought in many new fans as a result of this record. And I also love it. And that takes us to the number 1 record of the year. And the first band ever to be the 3-time Ghost Cult Album of the Year winner, for better or worse, Ghost Skeletor on Loma Vista Recordings. And Steve and I go, like, some of our earliest chats as friends are about our love of Ghost. And of course, you know, I can't think about Ghost without thinking about Rafa Davies, Matt Davies, rest in power. Definitely an interesting record for Ghost, right? He worked a long time on this. Prequel was the previous Ghost record that was Album of the Year before the Plague. You know, what did you think about like this Ghost record is not like other Ghost records. I think it's a great record. I think there's things about it that are missing from the previous Ghost records, but at the same time, I like that they did their like Def Leppard Hysteria record. What do you think?
I love it. I can't even be biased. Sorry, biased my word. I can't even be objective about it. I kind of took me a little while to get into Impera, and I know Tobias talked about wanting to find the fun again, and he sort of referenced the lyrics for Impera about slightly politically motivated, a little bit dark and stuff, and he wanted to get back to love songs to Satan, or you know, big kind of 80s happy. So it's pretty going to put Will off there, but you know, happy kind of songs that with big choruses and those sort of like old school rock dynamics. So you mentioned, yeah, Def Leppard Hysteria. I think that's key in that Europe Final Countdown kind of reference in there. But just from the first listen through from to Skeletor, I imagine I love the fact as well they called it something that they could then have the Skeletor, which I think is a fantastic reference to He-Man as well. But I don't know, I just like it's just big, unashamed, 10 great rock songs. It's all about the hooks, the catchiness. It's about singing along. It's about not taking things too seriously. there's a lot more kind of. I haven't said that. A lot more songs, I suppose, about love and kind of those things, not just love rockets. And it's got its tongue back in its cheek again, which I really like with Ghost, which I think that's when they're at their best. It isn't as deep. It doesn't have quite the same Merciful Fate influence as some of the previous records or those sorts of bits, but it's just brilliant songs. Just makes me really happy every time I listen to it. So this joined prequel is one of the albums that either lifts me up when I'm not feeling particularly great, or just makes me stratospheric. What's the word? Is stratospheric when I'm already up. Just love it all the way through. And for us, in terms of, it was the album the most number of people voted for, and the most people had as their top choice as well. So it was quite deserving winner in that respect. I think it kind of touched the hearts and the blackened souls of quite a few of us here. So.
I think all three, and again, we have a vastly different staff than when we first covered the band in 2012 and 2013. We were the first English language anything to have an interview ultimately with Tobias. And, I'm proud of that. I think we have a radically different crew today than we did 10 years ago and 13 years ago. And so they've won like 3 times. I don't think it was ever that close. Certainly not Meliora wasn't close either at all. And that's my favorite Ghost record beside the first one, right? So, what can you say? They win going away. Some of the lyrics on the record are pretty bad to me, but still overall hella catchy, heavy when it needs to be. Yes, their marketing stuff is all, thought out. He had, I don't know if anybody has ever seen this. I'll say one more thing. He kind of predicted he was going to do this. Like, this is the arc of Ghost, is going to go a certain way where we're going to get more and more catchy and commercial as time goes on. And I don't know that he could have anticipated that they'd become this big. Maybe he never thought they would be this big. I think it would be fun if they turned around next record and made like a very heavy doom metal record. I doubt he would, but I think it'd be fun. And unsurprising that Ghost is number one. It could have been any one of those 3 or 4 bands, Black Ray, Deaf Heaven, Deftones. Any one of them could have been high up. I didn't think they would be like a Knocked Loose band that would be any higher. But again, nice to see Primitive Man, Acacia Strain, Wardruna all up high. Great job.
I was going to say that nice to see. I think that's something for me with Ghost is when we first started covering, they were playing really small venues, like a couple of hundred people in the UK, and to see them now doing like big arenas, like huge.
I remember seeing them at Roper. Yeah. I remember seeing them at Roper. I think it was either 2011 or 2012, like one of my first years, and it was like, oh, this is going to go somewhere.
Yeah, saw them support Alice in Chains, and that's quite an odd thing to think about now. Like kind of 2012, I think it was. And you just see where they are from there. To just like being, I don't know. I suppose one of the first bands, probably other than Sleep Token, in our world that have got that big in the last 10, 15 years. It's kind of quite.
Yeah. I will also say I saw the 3rd ever Ghost US show, and they didn't talk to the crowd. They were wearing the black light painted gowns. So smoke, fog, no talking, song, basically the whole first album almost, and then walked off. And that was it in the Middle East upstairs in Boston. So, and maybe there was maybe 30 people there, I swear. And that was when I think Riding Easy or Rise Against Records, I don't remember which one Gaz Jennings has. That's the label that put the original Elizabeth.
Rise Above. Rise Above.
Right. Yeah. Thanks. Don is my expert.
I will forever love Ghost for the fact that I know they made a whole lot of dad rockers in the southern US have Hail Satan stuck in their head because it's so catchy.
And Hail Satan, Archangelo.
And I've changed my ringtone for the first time in 25 years to be Satanized. So, I just love it. And after the phone, I just put a groove into it and it comes on.
There it is. Just make sure the parents aren't around. Thanks, everybody, for joining today and watching the Ghost Cult 2025 Album of the Year Countdown. The full list will be on our website. I'm going to link everything in the description where people can find all of our team's assorted things, the other things we do beside Ghost Cult. I am eternally grateful for all of you. and everybody watching, and especially this crew, and especially you, Steve, because I love you. And the rest of you, I'll see you on the interwebs. And more to come. We got a banger month lined up with more. We still have concerts and festival reviews. Suzanne's going to go cover Eindhoven Metal Meeting next weekend. So a lot of stuff. Keep it tuned to Ghost Cult, especially here on YouTube. I'll see you guys soon. Peace. Thanks, everybody.
Happy holidays.
A good end of the year.
Hail Satan.